Jesus. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Longley's Line Podcast. I am your host, Stephen Longley. Remember to like, follow, subscribe, all of those social medias. Stephen Longley for me, Longley's Line for the show, and Lightstyles Studio for the studio here. And if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, if you know anybody that would be a good fit on the show, or you yourself are a part of the entertainment industry and want to promote your business, yourself, whatever you have, our email is at longleysline@gmail.com. And as you guys know, we like to bring on guests from all over the entertainment industry, and today is no different. Today I have Mr. Patreck Farley.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Glad for being here.
Before we get rolling into anything, go ahead and promote socials, anything like that you'd like to promote.
All right. As he said, I'm Patreck Farley, and I am the owner of Farley Productions, LLC. I tend to shoot weddings, commercials, and I'm pretty much everywhere in the media entertainment industry. I help shoot video content for casinos, mainly at the moment, and I also produce independent films of the action drama variety. You can find me on Facebook at Farley Productions LLC. Our most recent feature film, slated to release this summer, is called Fatal Encounter: Emergence of Talents, also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. For my Instagram handle, it's like Patreck_Farley. So super easy to find, including YouTube as well.
Great, pretty. Straight and to the point.
Yeah.
The good ones. So where are you from originally?
Reno, Nevada, actually.
Reno, Nevada? What part of Reno?
I've kind of been everywhere. I grew up in Sun Valley, then I moved over to Sparks as a teenager, and now I'm down in South Meadows, where Damani Ranch, what we call Horse Valley. There's just horses everywhere.
Yeah, I'm down in South Reno myself, right behind the In-N-Out that's over there.
Oh, nice. That's where I'm going here afterwards.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's where we're at. We're at the apartments that are right behind there, and they're nice. I like that. I much prefer the south part of town.
Yeah, we're off a Steamboat, so we're in those apartments over there.
Okay.
Right by the Monty Ranch Park.
Nice. Okay, so that's a cool little area over there.
It is. It's a very nice spot.
The south part.
I would recommend if you want to be not like directly in town, but not too far out of town, like Lemon Valley or going the cold, going further out.
Yeah, it's nice too, especially when you're leaving or going to work. You're missing the traffic.
That's true.
Normally what I see, the south part of town's nice. And so growing up, you were saying you were in Sun Valley. Is that where you went to high school at?
Elementary school. I went to Bud Beasley for the second half of elementary, then Mendive Middle School, and then Reed High School in Sparks High School.
And when you were in high school, or even just younger, did you have an idea of what you wanted to do for a living?
When I was younger, I wanted to be a cop and a scientist as a kid, like any kid does.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until high school where I started pursuing computer engineering, and then I found out I didn't like math, which is what a lot of it is.
Yeah.
And I didn't figure that out till like pre-calculus and trigonometry, but up to that point, I really did enjoy math, like too much. And then my elective classes were writing through film and digital video production. And we had like these little HD camcorders and these 1 gig of RAM HP computers or Dell computers. And the technology was very, very limited in 2010, 2011, but that's kind of where my love for that came in. Before this, I'd always consumed video games and movies.
Yeah.
I wasn't always trying to create it. Like I would make a music video here with some pictures and a song, or I'd make a gaming video, just a boss battle, but like no recording of my voice or me in the video.
Right, just the
because I just thought it was fun because YouTube in between 2006 and 2010 was a lot of just either gaming or like some potato camera content creator making some sort of entertainment comedy video.
Yeah.
And I was a huge fan of James Rolfe, the Angry Video Game Nerd.
Okay.
And I'm like, I like gaming. I like the concept of making a video. Like, I'm no good at it, but it doesn't mean I can't make it for fun.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until these classes in high school where I started working with like a script, a team of people, and realizing what really goes into making this.
Yeah.
And you can't do this alone.
No.
Unless maybe you're Adam Sandler with a bunch of post-production crew.
Yeah.
With Jack and Jill.
He starts his own thing up.
Yeah.
We won't go into Jack and Jill.
No, I hope not. Put everyone to sleep.
Yeah, it was like, let's talk Adam Sandler. All right, what are you going to do? Happy Madison or, like
excited
Billy
for
Madison?
Happy Gilmore too.
Yeah.
That'd be nice. So that kind of love of collaboration people coming together to make something that I wrote from scripts to putting on screen. I thought was so enjoyable. Why not do it again?
Yeah.
And next, it's been 13 years, and I've still been doing the same thing.
Right, and it just
and each project
came
gets
through.
harder and harder, and more paperwork, more planning, more pre-production, more contracts, more permits, and then next thing you know, you hit this giant wall of a feature film, and you're in a decent amount of size of debt to create your passion project.
Yeah.
You're like, oh man, I think I could use a little bit of a break or go back to some of the smaller projects after this.
Right.
Or because I already got all the equipment now that I put all this investment into. Might as well go out and keep using it.
Yeah. Do you have, so when you are getting started, what was the first like film that you really started to create where you were like, I'm going to keep going down this lane? Like, what was the one that really catapulted you?
I want to say Final Confrontation. It's this film I made I started in 2012, right after high school, going into college. And that one took me a couple of years to finish because I did one version, realized that I had all this copyrighted music, and I wanted to add a couple scenes, so I went back and redid it. And I was happier with that one, and I had all these plans for like a really big film, and then I looked at it going, I have no way of getting there.
Yeah.
And I started off with something smaller, and then that's kind of where I started my Fatal Encounter series.
Okay.
But at the time, since all I did was make home action movies, I didn't have anything like substantial under me yet. No one believed in my work, myself, the projects.
Sure.
I had friends tell me they'd help out, and then they'd drop out. They would stop being my friend. People would come and go so quickly that eventually I only had 4 people helping me. Actually 5. And that's not enough to create the vision I had in mind. So a lot of stuff had to get funneled down into a much smaller vision. And because of that, my first Fatal Encounter film in 2015 had a lot of flaws. And I also had like creator burnout at the same time.
Because you were just working on that specific one, and
Yeah, for 4 years that project took me from 2015 to 2019 to finish it.
wow.
And it was miserable. I had a lot of
Sure,
fun,
yeah.
but it was also very difficult. I didn't want that to kind of be like my brick wall.
Yeah.
So before I even finished that one, I jumped into Fatal Encounter Rise and Fight, and I met this guy named Mick Barnes, and he was making these fan music videos like Spider-Man, Deadpool,
Okay.
Red Hood, and I'm like, hey, this is really cool.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it looks like you need a lot of help in your camera work and behind the camera side of things, or even maybe like a stunt guy, which I can do because I've done martial arts for a long time. And he goes, oh, it looks like you can use a camera guy and a cinematographer. And I'm like, hey, you scratch my back, I scratch yours.
Match made in heaven. Yeah.
Yeah, and since then we both catapulted each other's career into the filmmaking and indie film industry.
Nice.
And so he goes his way with his projects, I go my way, then we come back together for our own projects when we're not working on clients sometimes.
Yeah, and then you make a collaboration with the two of you.
Yeah.
And when you have that collaboration come together, what comes out of it? What lane do you normally go down?
We usually share hats, so if it's like my project, I'm mainly the director, and he'll be like a co-director to me, and he'll help me with the cinematography, let me know if shots are looking good. He'll give me some pointers saying, hey, we should probably move this light over there, because maybe I'm thinking more of on this side of the spectrum, and he's thinking on the more technical side.
Right.
So it kind of helps us bring the vision together and takes a lot of stress off my shoulders.
And do you keep it in the like action martial arts?
For now,
Kinda
there's other
genre?
genres I want to dive into, but I realize the action drama martial arts side is kind of my bread and butter at the moment.
Right.
But I would really love to do more like psychological thriller.
As in
or
like a
comedy horror in a way.
like a Get Out or something like that?
Sort of like the video, like the board game Clue or the new movie The Menu.
Oh, okay.
Or anything with like Murder on Orient Express, like that type
Blind-
of genre. I really
Glass
like.
Onion. Like that kind of one where it's like the
I haven't
clue
seen
murder
that one,
mystery. That one's cool.
I like those movies.
Yeah.
So
They're-
I want to dive into that after I'm kind of done with action drama, or I take a break from it for a little while.
Right. Kind of let the dust settle on that because everyone's jumping around and kicking and moving and stuff. Just kind of let the dust settle and then see what other avenues you can go down.
Yeah.
When you were growing up, kind of getting into everything, what sort of inspirations did you have? Did you have like a favorite director or film or any kind of trilogy that you followed? Anything like that?
I did, and I had, for the independent film side of things, was always James Rolfe for a while, because really inspired with his Angry Video Game Nerd movie. Even if it was just more like a campy B-movie type of thing.
Yeah.
It was like his passion project, and I enjoyed it just being a fan. I don't think it has much value to people who aren't fans already.
Sure.
And then as far as like the really professional Hollywood side of things, there wasn't anything in the American studios that I liked until I discovered John Wick. So before I discovered Keanu Reeves and John Wick, it was more Donnie Yen with the Ip Man series.
Okay.
You know those
Ip
red
Man.
boxes that would be outside of like every gas station? Like there's still a couple around, but we never use them anymore.
Yeah, they're there, but you can do
So like
everything
before
online.
Netflix, I would go to these red boxes and I'd kind of see what movies there are, and I'd put a dollar in or swipe my card or whatever, and I'd get like a movie for the night, and then I'd go return it the next morning before work.
Yeah.
And the cover for Ip Man really intrigued me because it was about Bruce Lee's karate instructor, and that's how they advertised it as. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, so Ip Man, World War II, this sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
So I rented the movie for the night, and the group of guys from the karate school I went to watch it with, they all fell asleep, and I was like glued until the very
Gosh,
end.
what are you doing?
Yeah, and then literally the very next week on our next movie night, I'm like, hey, you guys want to watch Ip Man 2? And they're like, I don't know. I didn't like the first one. I'm like, you didn't even see half of it. You were sleeping.
Yeah. Just come on.
So they didn't want to watch it. Then after a few weeks, I convinced them to let's watch Ip Man 2. We made some chicken wings and tacos that night for dinner. And then we got to watch the movie I wanted to. And this was like 2011. Mm-hmm. And it was a very long time before Ip Man 3 came out in 2015. That was like my favorite one of the trilogy until they decided to make a fourth one and kind of end it there just because of popularity.
Sure.
And for me, that's kind of like how I like action movies to be made. Like I like the fight choreography, the stunt work, the sound effects especially. Their sound design team is amazing.
Where it's not just that goofy, like, kind of thing. Where it's
like they got a couple
actual.
in there that you can tell they phoned it in
Sure.
or they just put it in post, but like most of it's very there. Like I feel like these guys are actually hitting each other, and then they just took the decibels way the heck up.
Oh, okay.
Just for the sake of bringing more depth to the audio.
Yeah.
But like as far as like how I want to watch and enjoy an action film, that's where it's at.
Yeah.
Fast and Furious never captivated me. The only one I really liked was the seventh one, and that's probably because they brought in actual UFC fighters like Ronda Rousey to really help out with the action.
Right.
But if I just want like guns and explosions, I think that's perfect. Expendables with Sylvester Stallone and all those guys. I feel like the first two were really good. I never saw the third, but they didn't really inspire me to make action films. I feel like America didn't really have that touch.
Yeah.
And I found that more in the Chinese Hollywood side of things with their kung fu films, even if a lot of it is just blocking and redirecting strikes, and it takes forever for like the punch to land sometimes. I found that more entertaining than what we were providing here in America in the 2010s. But then I didn't know John Wick was around. To me, that's like the whole, like that's the one that really takes my interest. Like this is how you do it right. If you want guns, knives, police batons, hand-to-hand combat, this is what we should be doing more of.
Yeah.
Like, they understand it.
Yeah.
And they're really good at it.
They are. There's a reason the John Wicks are so popular.
Yeah.
Like, and you talk to, I'm sure there's those outliers that are there that don't care for the John Wicks, but you talk to anybody about John Wick and it is one of their top movies.
Oh, easily.
And there's a big reason why. Like, it's not just the fight choreography of it, but just the cinematography, the acting is incredible. Even if Keanu isn't there saying a ridiculous amount of stuff, it's his performance where he's just brooding and he's there, and it's you shouldn't have killed that man's dog.
Yeah, they screw that up.
Yeah, it was like you shouldn't have killed the dog in the first place, but you really messed up here, like big time.
Yeah, and the fact that they kept using the same cameras, like the REs from the first film all the way to the fourth, like really, and in fact they kept upgrading those RE cameras throughout the series, shows the same level of quality, but then it just got bigger.
Yeah, where you make the story a lot grander.
Yeah.
In a sense. And then when you're coming through the ensembles and kind of did the superhero like Marvel movies ever have any influence as well?
Just Iron Man at the time. I watched Iron Man and the Avengers first, and then that's when I discovered Captain America. Mm-hmm. But I was already a couple films deep before I watched like The Winter Soldier and went, okay, I like this one a lot.
Yeah.
Like as far as like hand-to-hand combat, this is the closest it's going to get for me.
Yeah.
Was Winter Soldier.
Because that one, just even everybody in there that you don't see fighting as much as they should, like Iron Man is actually there laying some blows down and pulling out his equipment like that.
It's very
not
cool.
In that way.
I like the superhero aspect to it. But they didn't really do, like, there's a lot of martial arts and fighting in the superhero movies, of course, but you also have to keep in mind that they have superpowers.
Yeah.
So it's going to be elevated. Winter Soldier felt the most grounded to me, even though he is like a superhuman. And it wasn't until Shang-Chi where I feel like they brought the martial arts heavily back. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, they got these powers. You incorporate some fighting into it, but then you got Captain Marvel who can fly and shoot lasers and stuff.
Yeah, and then you're kind of like,
so
well,
yeah,
that's what she's
it's okay. Not my cup of tea, but it's for somebody.
Yeah, when it comes to Marvel stuff, I can nerd out on that because
same.
Love those Marvel movies, and the only ones that have really done everything justice, I would say, would be like the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Those are
like,
good.
Where their trilogies were the absolute best. And then it's like Captain America was great, Winter Soldier was great, Civil War, you're like, are you sure this is the third one for that?
Feels more like an Avengers movie, but it was still really good.
Yeah, it was amazing. And then you're like, well, okay. And then Captain Marvel comes in and she's supposed to just mollywop everybody. And you're like,
yeah,
okay.
For me, it kind of ended more on Endgame, and then only two films I liked after that were like the Spider-Man No Way Home,
yeah,
and Shang-Chi. Those are like my two favorites, even if it ended in a giant CGI dragon fight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
everything up to that point, that was really well done.
Yeah, have you ever thought about like if you say a studio comes up to you, it could be Marvel, DC, whoever it is. If somebody came up to you and said, "Hey, we're going to give you this big budget. Can you make this big superhero movie?" Have you ever thought
I would definitely be down for that?
That would be something?
Yeah, like the only thing that I currently hold really close to my heart is like my own Fatal Encounter series. So as long as they're not trying to buy out the rights for that and have me make another one, because I'd rather keep that very independent. They're like, hey, we want to come with this genre, this idea, can you go make one? I would totally be down for that.
Yeah, that would be, it's your baby. That's the one you want to keep close. And so going on that, how many sequels have come from that?
So far, it's a 3-movie series. Like, I do bring in some story elements from my first 2 home movies, because I didn't want to start from nothing. Part of me kind of regrets that. But back in 2015, I started the first Fatal Encounter. Then I made Fatal Encounter Rise and Fight in 2018. Then I made Fatal Encounter Emergence of Talents in more or less 2021, 2022 is when we did all the filming.
Right.
But it's mainly a 3-movie series. That's kind of how I want the audience to watch it.
Okay.
I don't expect like diehard fans to go even further back than that.
To see the main prequels that came from it.
Yeah, correct. If you want to go like really far back where I'm even more cheesy, the lines don't work, the acting's horrible.
Yeah.
Sound effects are just not there. You can dive very far back in that, but I'd prefer if people started in this trilogy and then kind of went from there.
And what's to kind of go in the like process of that, where, if you could give a little detail on what the like synopsis of the movie is and kind of how you came up with the idea, if that makes sense. So like what the movie's about and then how you kind of got there.
I don't remember my inspiration for as like the story idea goes. Like I knew I was really heavy into like Resident Evil at the time I was writing the first one. And so I wanted to like do biogenetic humans, and I also was playing Metal Gear Solid, so I know like that was probably a little bit of inspiration.
Sure.
And so the synopsis of Fatal Encounter Emergence of Talents is that this superhuman named Zagan, he comes into power, he partners up with the United States. He's looking for these fugitives that have been screwing him for like the last 6 years,
Okay.
and he wants to get revenge on them.
Ooh.
One of these guys have hurt him personally, and he's going after him. And the other 2 guys have been blowing up his warehouses, taking supplies, kind of building a resistance against him.
Okay.
And so partnering with the United States gives him that ultimate power. And he wants to evolve humanity even further, regardless of how inhumane it's going to be to get there. And so our heroes like Fennec, Rich, and Nick, these are the main protagonists, are rising against him, but then their values are also split towards the end of the film. Or it's like, I like to think of it like Captain Jack Sparrow and Barbossa in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, where like in The World's End, they're not friends, they're more like frenemies.
Yeah.
They have to be working together because they both know there is a bigger threat looming over their heads.
Right. Okay.
So like these characters of mine, they're friends first and they become frenemies towards the end.
Okay.
And I think the story works out that way, better that way, because if I didn't add some sort of conflict, I don't think it would work as well.
Yeah, you kind of need conflict to keep the story driving.
Correct. And so this organization that Zagan runs is called Sacrifice for a Greater Cause. And for a while they're working underneath the U.S. government, even maybe partnered with them secretly, and it's not until this film they come out and start showing themselves to the public.
Okay.
And that's where things get really heated.
Interesting. Okay, cool. So you have the entire like storyline going, and so now with your third one here, does it put a nice just bow on everything?
It
Or
does.
does it kind of leave things where it can be a little bit open-ended?
It's a little open-ended. I can't give away the ending. I want people to go watch it themselves.
Yeah, actually
but
see it.
it does tie up all the loose ends of the major arc of the Sacrifice for Greater Cause organization, but at the same time, even though their arc is concluded, it's still open-ended to a further story going forward.
Okay.
And in case I never get around to making it, at least it does tie a bow pretty nicely.
Yeah,
Even if it leaves some questions that are unanswered at the end.
sure. Which, I mean, you kind of always have with movies, you know? There's always some sort of questions where it's like, well, how did so-and-so end up? Or what happened here? And you kind of, I would imagine that that's a little tough to always bring back together.
It is. I like to think of it like Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Like they could have ended it on Breaking Bad just fine. And I feel like that was a perfect ending, and if you did have a few open-ended questions about how it ended.
Yeah.
And then Better Call Saul was more like a prequel to the lawyer they had, and it wasn't until you get to like the last season where you start getting a lot of those unopened questions.
Yeah.
Just from Saul's side and perspective.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a great way of telling stories these days. I didn't watch Better Call Saul till just late last year.
Yeah.
Same with Breaking Bad, but
My dad
I feel like
and
their
used
way
to
of
watch it.
storytelling is literally perfect.
Yeah. I think those kind of like prequel stories are a lot of fun too. Because if
Yeah.
they're done the right way, then you can always see, oh, okay, I see why they did this. And if you're an actual fan of everything, then you can connect your dots and be like, okay, now this makes a lot of sense. This is perfect. Oh shit, that's why they did that. And, stuff like that. Have you thought with the movies that came in that, now you're kind of wrapping up the trilogy, have you thought of any kind of spin-off version of it?
I have actually. My friend Blake, he's like my assistant director for this entire trilogy. He's been around since the beginning. Him and I came up with a lot of ideas to propel the story forward. Because at the end there's like a split with how the story is going to go.
Right.
All the characters are following a singular track at this point, and at the end we split off.
Okay.
So my character would be doing his own thing, not at such a high stakes, but pretty high for him since he's alone this time around handling it. And then his character would be going into a different realm of things.
Okay.
To where we can have different cast and crew for both sides, 2 different types of budgets, and I think we can take the story in interesting ways. So we're thinking a web series for him,
Okay.
and then a smaller 4th film that takes place after this one.
Gotcha. Okay.
But right now, that's all ideas. I've been
Sure.
too busy planning a movie premiere, streaming, tying up loose ends, polishing, trying to get coffee meetings set up. Then I still need to write a script. So it could be a while before that gets off the ground.
Right. But mainly
But-
what you need is the idea. That you
Yeah.
have the thought there, and then it's just the execution of everything else.
Yeah, I feel like the execution would be the easy part. Getting the cast and crew is the hard part, and after that is all just piecing it together.
Right.
Because I'm planning on shooting more locally. For Salem County Emergence of Talents, I flew in a guy from Oregon, a guy from Iowa, a girl
Oh, wow.
from Georgia, and I grabbed a bunch of local cast and crew, and I kind of brought all these people together to make this movie. This time around, I don't want to fly in more than 2 people for reoccurring characters, so
Sure.
I'm calling them back. Everybody else, I want to be already local or a state over at most.
Yeah.
And that's going to help hold the budget. It's going to make things easier to shoot. And we're going to shoot out of order, so I like to shoot everything before I fly in the reoccurring characters from the last movie, and then we shoot their scenes together. That way it's broken up in like 2 years, and it's a lot easier on everybody and their schedules.
That makes a lot of sense. Trying to keep it as simple and budget friendly as you can.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Do you kind of have it to where, like how we kind of mentioned Adam Sandler earlier, do you think with different ideas that don't follow the same storyline that you already have going on, have you thought of different films where you may incorporate somebody from the current one? Like how you were kind of saying, doing The Clue or Glass
Actually,
Onion
I
kind of
do.
thing.
Like, I like to use my friend Blake to be the main detective as far as like this psychological thriller murder mystery that I want to do. I want to take him and make him the detective, and then I want to grab about 10 to 15 people who are going to be like the crew or the cast, and then I have only a few people behind the camera, and then you start following this storyline of people getting killed in this mansion,
Yeah,
and you have to figure out who the murderer is before everybody dies.
that's cool.
But then no one can leave because the road is gone. Big storm constantly. That's blocking out any helicopters, and so you got the weekend to save all these people.
Yeah, that's
And I
cool.
feel like that'd be pretty cool to do. And I would love to bring back some cast and crew that I already have to make this.
That's all. I feel like a thing now that, as we kind of talked Marvel earlier, the Easter eggs of little reoccurring characters is always fun for the audience.
Oh yeah.
You know,
You can put like a
see
movie
somebody.
poster from a different movie and just throw it in the background and kind of have some characters looking at it, but you don't ever like point it out.
Yeah. I know. Oh shit! It's Detective Johnson, and you see
basically,
them
yeah.
in. That's cool. I like.
I'd love
those
to do
ones.
that. That way they know it's like in this world it's a movie, but in that movie's universe, like it's the story.
Yeah.
It
Make
can
it
be like a Deadpool type of thing.
right. He's just bouncing around.
Yeah.
Just staying in there. So when it comes to creating everything, kind of the behind the scenes version of it, you said the actual execution of it is the easy part. What goes into when you have the concept in your mind? What's kind of your steps that you take to make it come to life? Because like you said earlier, where it's, with the 2015 to 2019 was the 4-year project, and then everything kind of condenses down a little bit.
Right.
What kind of process do you have when it comes to getting everything going?
Lately I've been going with writing notes and ideas. Like I'll start with some title ideas I like. I'll start with some characters. Then I'll kind of create like the timeline for the story. Then I go with the plot synopsis. And then I go to start casting my characters.
Right.
And while I'm casting my characters, I am thinking of the storyline because now I already have the synopsis in my head. Then I can start adding things to it or taking things out.
Yeah.
And so for my 4th Fatal Encounter film, which would be a lot smaller in scale, I already have some people in mind that I'm trying to plan coffee meetings with. And if everybody that I have in mind's on board, then I got all my main characters set. Now I just got to write the script and make sure I secure my locations.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of ideas to make it grander in scale in some areas, but it's also going to still be that low budget type of thing.
Keep it indie with a big timey feel.
Correct. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. I think that's what a lot of people try to go for too, because the grittiness of indie films is great,
Yeah.
but you also want that little bit of zhuzh to it, where it kind of takes it over that next level, where it's still an indie film, but it has these big parts and big moments that kind of make you forget it's an indie film.
Yeah.
That
that's
kind of way.
kind of what I've been doing with my last film, right? Well, my current one, is I took about 5 guys and took them down to Los Angeles. I rented out a rooftop and we did this fight scene up there.
Nice.
And just because you're downtown LA and then you're adding special effects of explosions and you got another fight going on inside this giant rustic warehouse, it really makes it seem grander in scale, even though it's just 5 guys on the roof, 4 guys in a warehouse.
Right.
And that's the whole crew for the day.
Yeah.
But the audience, you don't need to know
They
that.
don't need to know that.
Yeah. I filmed it in 2 different days and cut it together.
Yeah, where it turns out,
Or they're watching this now, But that's how the magic happens.
That's all the behind this. And going on behind the scenes, do you have any other kind of stories from behind the scenes where it stood out to you, where either it was one of those fun things where you brought everybody out to LA and kind of did the filming there, or kind of where, you had a bigger name that you got to come in, or kind of any behind the scenes stories?
I do, actually. I got probably one too many. To give the biggest behind the scenes story, I'm releasing an inside look video here pretty soon that I've been making for this film to promote it.
Oh, nice.
Even though it does have minor spoilers in it, it's sort of like watching the official trailer.
Yeah.
The idea for behind the scenes, try to summarize as best I can. I had the idea in 2019, and I wrote out the script, and then, of course, the pandemic happens in 2020 before we can film anything.
Yeah.
So I make a few guys sign some waivers, and we film something in July, and we go out, make sure we keep it outdoors. I use that as my promotional material, and all my crowdfunding efforts mainly flopped in 2021 because I was trying to do Kickstarter at the time.
Sure.
It didn't work out. But then I started realizing I needed to recast people because people who are originally on board are no longer on board because of the pandemic.
Right.
And they're not giving me a time frame. They just say forever. I went, okay, well, when the vaccine comes out, forever is not going to be with me. I'm going to make this regardless.
Yeah.
But I'm still going to keep it COVID compliant and friendly. And so going into mid-2021, because I delayed it a year, gave me more time to prepare the script, which was really good because I had a lot of little issues in there earlier that I was too blind to see.
Yeah,
without getting more eyes on it.
Yeah.
And so in 2021, after recasting everybody but I had almost everybody recasted minus the main villain because he told me more at the last minute, 6 weeks before we actually had to shoot. That was a nightmare. But
Sure.
before getting there, we shot a bunch of stuff in 2021. I kept it all local cast and crew minus Nick Messersmith. He's a 4th degree black belt in Taekwondo. I flew down from Iowa.
Oh, damn.
So we filmed all his scenes, and I did another fundraiser on Indiegogo. As at this time, it was a flexible funding fundraiser so I can keep the profits. That $580 only goes so far.
Yeah.
That was really just enough to maintenance the car, fill up the gas, and feed the crew for a day. Then it goes really fast.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it can.
it helped a little bit, and I put all the backers in the movie credits, and I update them through Indiegogo whenever there is an update. And so going into 2022, that's when I had to fly everybody down. So I flew back Nick. I flew in Aaron Maines from Georgia. Then I flew in Gino Romo.
Okay.
And he has over 20 to 40 IMDb credits to his name.
Wow.
He's been doing acting for over 20 years.
Nice.
And he's a pretty big name up in Oregon, but no one here in Northern Nevada probably knows who he is.
Sure.
So he kind of got out of his state to shoot more stuff throughout the country. So I flew him in. He had a lot of stunt work and hand-to-hand combat for theater practice and on-screen filming.
Okay.
And I'm like, well, that's just enough for me to work with you. And he had that villain look I wanted. So Johnny Kinch bowed out of the project because his production company got too big to want to fly from the United Kingdom to come down here. So I had to fly in Gino Romo, but then me contacting him 6 weeks before the film. That was a lot of phone calls and getting details figured out.
I bet, yeah.
And so I got him signed on, gave him the script, and he just came prepared. He had all his lines memorized for every scene.
Good.
And he was like my A-list actor that I'm handling.
Yeah.
And I love Gino to death, but he also has his, like, I need this particular thing when we're off set. Like, I need
Gotcha.
this coconut shampoo, otherwise I'm very unhappy. And you're like, okay, that's a request I can fulfill.
You got
I
it.
take him to the store and I'm like, pick out exactly which one you want.
Show me what you need here.
Yeah, so, like, you have to accommodate people's needs, and I made him stay in this mansion I was renting out. You get this room, you get my couch, you get this room, and it made it feel more like family, because I kind of did like everything in a production house instead of, and then I would take us to locations when we needed to go to, but
Yeah.
we made that production house.
Excuse me, sorry.
Oh, you're good. We made that production house like many different locations for the film. Okay, the kitchen is going to be for the villains. The living room's going to be for the protagonist. The office is for the villains. The courtyard's for the protagonist. And this little casita area is for the protagonists. And then we would make sure we blocked off certain parts of the house to make so you didn't see other parts of it to give away
Yeah.
the secret.
Nice.
And it just worked out really good that way. So instead of renting out a lot of locations, I rented out one and then just did blocking to achieve the locations I needed.
That's cool. That's a good way to use your space for
I did have access
filming.
to a full-size bar, but having a bar inside of a house was just, we're already there, it's the end of the day, and we just got that scene knocked out really fast.
Yeah. So that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it definitely helped out a ton.
That's cool.
What other behind the scenes? Oh yeah, since there's a lot of fighting, you can imagine there's injuries, and I'm not the only one who took injuries. I had everyone on waivers, but like everyone knew going in that this is going to be a very physically demanding project if your character has any sort of fighting going on.
Yeah.
And I was the director who said, well, if you're playing this character, you have 3 fight scenes, you have 4 fight scenes, you have 1 fight scene.
Let them know.
And they know in advance, okay, I have to go to the gym, I got to train with Patreck for some of the martial arts scenes where I would get them more associated with hand-to-hand combat, sparring, getting their cardio going. Like I trained Mick Barnes for 3 whole months just to get him going for 2021.
Right.
And then he was still okay going into 2022 just after like a singular rehearsal session where him and I just worked out for an hour, called it good. I would have done more than that, but he actually broke he shattered his hand. He cut it open by taking a mason jar and slamming it on a table from being really angry. So for 4 whole months, I could not do anything with his left hand. So you can't really work out or make a fist. Or,
Yeah.
Actually, no, it was his right hand, so he became more of a lefty. So his right hand he did that with.
I'd be out of commission.
And yeah, so that really delayed things on that end. And I fractured my sternum taking a sidekick during one of the fight scenes.
Oh, shit.
Because I got this light padding Amazon vest on that I bought, and then this actor has this military grade boot, and he's sidekicking me as hard as he can to get me to slide across the floor. And I'm used to taking hits, so like
Sure.
when my body takes the hit, I go with it to reduce damage as much as possible. It just habitually happens for me.
Yeah.
But the kick was so hard, it still made an impact here.
Yeah. Still did a
And
little
it took
damage.
me about 4 to 6 months to fully recover from that too.
Oof.
Then I lost some weight, and then I had to go back to the gym for 3 months and just grind there like 2 to 5 days a week, just get myself back into the weight,
Yeah.
and then also get myself ready for the next big shoot, and then everything looks the same. So I'm hoping people don't notice that this was filmed 6 months apart.
Yeah. Nobody's going to notice. Nobody noticed.
I did a good job to make sure no one noticed.
Yeah,
so it
keep that
ties
continuity.
in very nicely together. And my friend Blake, for another injury off the top of my head, was he bruised up his shin and his knee from having to roll underneath this garage door because Rich and Nick are escaping from this ambush where they're constantly being bombarded by guys
Yeah.
trying to kill them. And so they end up rolling under an open garage door to get away.
So, needless
Yeah.
to say, there are
Accidents
some injuries,
happen.
as they do. A lot of the stunt. So, to kind of piggyback on that a little bit, so with all of your films, are you the lead in all of them, or just more of a like big supporting character?
I was the lead in the first Fatal Encounter, and then I was also a lead in the second. And it wasn't until this third one where I really kind of driven the point of having there'd be a lot more characters. So I've always been trying to build up to have a lot of characters. But it took me a while to get the cast and crew to do it with.
Sure.
So like in the first movie, there's 2 good guys, 2 bad guys. Pretty easy, and I'm one of the good guys. The second movie, we have 3 good guys, 1 bad guy, but he has a lot of men. Oh, and a couple of women like on his side that he's always throwing at the good
lot of
guys.
hench people.
Then he kidnaps one of them, brainwashes him, and turns him against the other 2.
Oh, shit.
So he's a pretty messed up guy. And then the third one, you got 3 good guys and then like 4 bad guys.
Okay.
And so it kind of helps even the odds in a way. And then, of course, the bad guys have an army of guys they're constantly sending at the men at the same time.
Yeah.
And because I brought more characters in, it gave me the fulfillment as a director. There are some days I don't need to be in front of the camera.
Yeah.
This is awesome. Then there are days I'm like, okay, now I have to be in front of the camera, and now my anxiety goes through the roof because I'm like, okay, I gotta direct, I gotta get my mind in set for this character and actually act today. And then I gotta think of all the fight choreography that we're doing.
Right.
Wow, this is a fun day. Or maybe I'm tied to a chair for a torture room scene. I can't leave the chair until we're done filming.
Yeah.
Because you got to get the rope tied a very specific way.
So
I'm like holding my bladder for like an hour and a half. Totally worth it, but
Sure.
you can't leave the chair once you're tied to it. So I made sure drinking water was very, very minimal.
Yeah.
So it was like the least problematic bladder I've ever had. So, like, you have to take your mind in every tunnel when you're wearing multiple hats. So, like, there are some days I really enjoyed being in front of the camera, and then there are days I enjoyed being behind the camera more.
Right.
Or if I just play, like, one of my own bad guys, I'm wearing a mask, and I'm just cannon fodder, in a way.
Yeah, can't even
And
tell.
I used to play, like, every extra ever, but I was finally able to get enough help to where I only had to play 1 extra.
Nice.
And that's just because I chose to, because I really wanted this biohuman, the soldier storming into this house to have a very specific fighting style using a couple butcher knives.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, how hard would it be to defend yourself against someone with 2 really long Michael Myers type of knives, or Jason Voorhees trying to come after you, but then they know martial arts or kung fu and make it even harder. So that's quite the fight. Because Blake said, I want my character to use tonfas. Like, okay, well, if you're going to use tonfas, and I want to come at you with some knives, and we're going to make a cool fight scene.
We're going to make
And
this
we did. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But we couldn't keep it in the kitchen because the house was too small. So, like, I made sure to cut to another fight going on, and we took the fighting outside. You know, we didn't show how we got there. We could just assume, like, after knocking this guy away, Blake ran outside, and he followed. And, like, the character, the audience can kind of piece it together on their own.
And then you work the movie magic to get it to the next scene.
But don't go as crazy as like George Lucas with Star Wars 1, where like there's 4 fights going on. You're like, okay. By the time you get back to one of them, you're like, oh yeah, that is going on.
I completely forgot they were
friends.
I thought they were
I feel like
friends now.
3 is the max. Anything more than that's too much.
Yeah, when you're trying to focus on too many
I
things
love
at
episode
once.
1. To me, like, it's a very good movie, even if it's partial guilty pleasure, because there's so many things going on at the end. You got Anakin in space going through the Droid Federation airship, little spaceship, and then you have the Gungans on the field, like the army fighting. You got Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, and Darth Maul fighting at the same time. Then you also got Queen Amidala storming the temple to take back her headquarters, like her palace.
Yeah.
And that's a lot going on sometimes.
Yeah, and then it goes back to one scene, and you're like, I completely forgot they were doing that.
Yeah, basically.
I'm glad they went back.
I still find a lot of enjoyment in that, but for me, I feel like 3 was always the gap.
Yeah.
Don't cut back more from 3, so it starts off being 2, breaks away into 3 because the 2 characters in the house get separated, then they come back together towards the end. So I feel like I have the right balance there.
Okay. Yeah,
And
so 3's your
same with
magic
like
number.
the finale. Like I've always wanted something on a roof and then something in a warehouse. And so like you have to separate the characters to achieve that.
Yeah.
And put them through their own dynamics and dilemmas.
Do you have your own, you kind of just said rooftop or anything, do you have your own like signature that you like to add to the films?
Like style?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I feel like my style lately is like more close-ups and like cutting the camera to be involved into the action.
Okay.
A couple of my favorite shots is just my friend Blake is coming at Zagan, and like Gino Romo, he's taking the tonfas and he's coming towards the camera, and Gino's head is facing towards the camera. Then he turns and looks away from the camera, seeing this tonfa coming at his face, and he blocks it with his arm.
Nice.
And that's like one of the most dynamic. Like the camera's static, but the action's coming towards the camera, and it takes you into it going, oh my god, like he almost got hit in the face with this thing.
Yeah.
And the actor almost literally did get hit in the face because
Sure.
he blocked it closer to the last minute, but heading in more of those camera angles, I feel like helped. And then one of my other favorite, like further back shots is I'm coming at him with these two knives towards his throat. He moves his head out of the way, grabs my arms, knees me in the stomach, and he spins me around at 360. I guess more like a 180, and throws me into Blake, the other guy. And then as he throws me into him, the camera follows the action. Then it cuts straight to him taking off his jacket and throwing it.
No, nice.
Like that is intimidating. Then it cuts to the other fight.
Yeah.
You're like, oh man.
But then you're already riled up from all that going
Yeah.
on. And then you're invested.
Because like when we were in Los Angeles, like I had all the choreography written in my script, but I'm like, it'd probably better if we took the time to redo the entire choreography
Sure.
and just take some of my ideas. And I decided to bounce with Nick Messersmith. I've been doing martial arts for 17 years, and we don't do fight choreography in martial arts, but it does help you understand it in a different level and helps you
Right.
be very athletic and know how to move your body in that way. So he's been doing martial arts for over 20-something years. So I kicked everybody else out of the hotel room. They want to go eat dinner and stuff anyways, or snack, go by the pool.
Yeah.
Him and I stayed up till like 11:30 at night, shooting ideas back and forth. I'm like, okay, my fight ends here. Where does your fight pick up? Okay, what's the last thing you do in that sequence? Okay, my second sequence is going to be this set of moves and angles. What's yours? And then we kept going back and forth, and then there were a couple where I went, hey, yeah, I like that idea, but can you put that in your sequence 3 instead of 4? Because it works
okay.
better for my cut.
Yeah.
So it cuts back and forth even better that way.
Gets all the intricacies down that you need. You never realize, for those that don't know behind the scene, excuse me, for those that don't know the behind the scenes stuff, you never realize how much goes into an actual fight when you're watching
Right.
a movie or a TV show. There's so much stuff that can go into it, or else people will get hurt.
That's
And
right.
Sometimes
And they even
do,
take
but-
multiple days to do it. They'll actually do the fight choreography, and they'll prepare their actors for it, then they go and shoot the same choreography they did.
Yeah.
I didn't have the budget luxury to do that, where I could have people take time off work to practice choreography ahead of time.
Sure.
So instead, I would have them practice it for the one camera shot we're doing. So, okay, this is the one camera angle. Practice it as many times as you need until we get it down, film it, do the next one.
Right.
And then we'd have it all written out in bullet points of what camera angle and action we're doing next.
Okay.
And sometimes I might come up with something different or add to it to where I throw a curveball in my choreography if I feel like this works better than that.
Yeah.
But I had everything really more sophisticatedly planned out. So it took a lot of stress off my shoulders and knowing what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And I actually had 6 sequences for the rooftop, but by the time we were done with 4, even I myself was pretty exhausted because we're all wearing dark clothes on this rooftop in LA where it had to be like 90 to 105 degrees,
Yeah,
and the
just
sun's
cooking up
beating
top
on
there.
you the whole time. The only
Yeah.
shade you have is this water tank or this really hot stairwell with no air conditioning.
Oof.
And there's like hardly any wind for whatever reason. Like all the clouds and the light wind breeze was for the dialogue, and then the clouds went away, and it's just straight sun. Clouds
Yeah.
never came back. And so I decided to take the ideas from my last 2 sequences and the fight choreography, combine it into one, so I made it even shorter. And then we just kind of filmed it and got off the roof.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's good enough for me. And I decided to let the warehouse be the ending action,
There you
which
go.
I actually like more anyways, because they start fighting off screen, then they end the fighting on screen. So like their fight lasts longer than what happens on the roof, but the roof is equally intense because you got a 2 versus 1 fight going on versus a 1 versus 1 in the warehouse.
And then you can get the finale in the warehouse, how it finishes off there. So when it comes to you saying you're acting and directing, wearing the many hats, which one do you gravitate towards more? Do you enjoy the acting side of it much more than the directing side, or do you prefer the directing side where you can see your finished product come to life, or the acting where you can be a part of that finished product?
It's really hard because I used to want to be behind the camera more, but I feel like no one could do the action stuff I wanted. So I molded the character after my personality at the time to make it easier for me to act. Mm-hmm. And then when I realized I focused on the directing side of things more, my acting became very wooden in the second movie. And so in the third, I hired an acting coach. I hired professional actors to help me bring up my acting on set.
Right.
And I kind of played my weaknesses to my strengths to make everything on camera look as good as possible.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time practicing acting. I am no professional actor by any means,
Sure.
but I found a different enjoyment of acting in the third movie than I did with like the first two movies.
Right.
Because I was trying to have my character take more of a, like he still had to be relevant for the story, but he didn't have to be in front of the camera as much.
Gotcha.
Then once I found that enjoyment, I was okay with him being in front of the camera. Mm-hmm. And then I found a new love for acting.
Where the pressure was off a lot more.
It's also me writing my own character.
Sure.
So I just recently got casted into a TKO Productions called Skin Circuits, and I'm playing this guy named Mike. So I'm playing a character that I didn't write in a state that I don't live in, and a new cast and crew that I only met through Zoom calls so far.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm totally okay with that because
Yeah.
I get to go be a different character in someone else's project and something I didn't write. Mm-hmm. And that's an experience I've been wanting for a while. Because every time my friends pull me to help them out with their projects, I'm playing Batman for a fan film.
Right.
And that character is already established. And then, or I'm literally just doing a bad guy with the mask on, and there's no, like there's some character development there, but I didn't write him, but it's also like a post-apocalyptic type of story, so this character is barely in the film. He's just kind of in the background doing CIA evil things until he eventually converts to the good side in like the end of the film. Mm-hmm. And so I'm always playing like these side characters or doing more like stunt work.
Yeah.
And that's when I'm not helping them behind the camera on other days.
Yeah.
Where I don't have to be in front of it at all. But they didn't really give me a role where I'm showing my face. I'm always wearing like a mask.
Yeah, more of a
and it makes it easier to act, in my opinion. You know, if only half your face is covered from being Batman, or you're wearing a full like ski mask in a way.
Yeah. You're like, you can tell he's brooding.
Oh, totally. I don't have to be myself.
Yeah. Just don't smile. You got it.
So I'm not sure. I like creating my own work, and I like writing a character for myself to continue. But I also have a few ideas where I'm not in front of the camera.
Yeah.
And I want to pursue those ideas too.
Yeah. Get the story going without the added pressure of wearing so many hats.
That too, yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, Patreck, I want to thank you for coming in and kind of telling your story here, and excited to see all of these films come to fruition. Before we do get you out of here, go ahead and promote socials where people can find your films, where everything's coming out, when, dates like that.
Oh, of course. So you can find me on YouTube and Facebook under Farley Productions, LLC. And you can find my most recent film, Fatal Encounter, Emergence of Talents, also like on the Facebook, the Twitter. My name is spelled a little differently if you're looking me up by first and last name. Patreck is spelled with an E instead of an I, and then Farley, it's spelled like Chris Farley, the F-A-R-L-E-Y.
We love Chris Farley here.
Yeah, so you'll find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram mainly. Those are my socials, and I recently started Threads. So once you find one, you can kind of find them all. And my movie premiere is slated for release in Reno, Nevada at the National Automobile Museum on June 29th. You can find the event page through Facebook on either the movie page or my personal movie production company page. Or you can just look it up on Eventbrite. We're selling tickets June 29th from like 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. as the event time. And we still got about 130 tickets left to be sold.
Nice.
And after that, it's just going to be streaming whatever I do. It's going to be Film Hub, which is going to kind of sort it through multiple streaming platforms. But I don't know what's going to pick it up yet.
Right, but it will be streaming at some point after the premiere.
Correct. It'd have to be after the premiere.
Yeah, of course.
I feel like before would kind of ruin it.
Yeah, that would kind of ruin everything. But Patreck, thank you for coming in. We're excited to see everything come out. And you guys know what to do over here for us. It's Stephen Longley for me, Longley's Line for the show, Lightstyle Studio for the studio here, longleysline@gmail.com for our email. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Thank you for having me.
Don't do it!
It's too late.
Greetings, citizens of the world. My name is Zagan, Supreme Leader of the Sacrifice for the Greater Cause. So I will tell you this. If you oppose us in your country, then you shall die on the very soil that you stand on.
We have to go now.
It's too late, Fink.
Why?
Zagan's here.
You want to scare and kill my friends. I'm not gonna give them up. They need me.
I made a lot of mistakes in the past, but at least they're decisions I can live with. Innocent people don't get that option, and it's why I have to put a stop to Zagan no matter what.
We save innocent lives.
At the cost of our humanity? I guess that cost wasn't high enough for you, was it?
Don't you remember the pact we made years ago? This is what we're fighting for.
And if the fugitives of the past are listening, be warned. We know where you are, and we're coming for you.